When do you get to just be a man?
Hey, what are you doing?
We shouldn't do this.
The film opens with a janitor discovering a frightened girl in a classroom. As he goes out to seek help, another girl appears, urging him to flee with blood on her hands. Several weeks prior, Mr. Chris and his daughter Riley had just moved to this school for a fresh start. He, an English teacher, had been betrayed by his wife. He suggests Riley join a club to make friends easily, but she refuses, still communicating with her friends from her previous school. Next, a photojournalist, Kyla, is seen busy photographing all the students for the yearbook. When she focuses her camera on Chris, Trisha, the popular girl, insists on having her picture taken. She notices the arrival of the new English teacher and openly shows interest in him. Shortly after, the class begins, with Mr. Chris enthusiastically enlightening his students with lessons and fun. He gets into a small argument with Kyla about the appropriation happening in the music industry, intentionally done to get to know his students better. After the lesson, Kyla accidentally meets Riley in the computer room and they introduce themselves. Here, she learns that Riley is Chris's daughter, prompting her to keep it a secret for Riley's comfort at school. Claiming no ulterior motive, Kyla asks for Riley's help in studying English, inviting her to study together, and she agrees. Unbeknownst to her, Kyla secretly harbors feelings for Chris. At home, Kayla finds her mother, Mrs. Jess, practicing for a date with a man she recently met. She asks her mother to reveal the man's identity, but she refuses until they are truly a couple. That night, she finds herself unable to contain her feelings for Chris any longer and begins to envision peculiar things with him. The next day, Kyla visits Riley's house as they agreed to study together. But before that, her journalistic side is triggered, prompting her to ask some questions where she learns that Riley's mother betrayed her family for her new boyfriend. In response, she also speaks openly about her family, admitting that her father left when she was 6. While Riley goes to the bathroom, Kyla sneaks into Chris's room and hugs his bed. The next day in class, Trisha tries to get Chris's attention by intentionally breaking her pencil. However, he patiently ends the disruption by lending her his pencil. After class, Trisha approaches Riley and confesses that she knows Chris is her father, but she promises to keep the secret and invites her to be her shopping buddy. After she leaves, Kyla comes to scold Riley, forbidding her to be friends with whom she considers a dangerous. She reveals that Trisha once had an obsession with one of the history teachers until he was replaced for the rest of the year. Despite no certainty about it, she is convinced that Trisha had something to do with his replacement. She admits she's just trying to protect her as a friend, and knowing this, Riley thanks her for the warning. The next day, Kyla calls Riley and learns that she will soon turn 18. She offers to help her organize a party with their friends, and she agrees. Then she inquires about her father's experience dealing with obsessive girls like Trisha. Riley admits she's not sure about that, but she mentions that her father is dating someone. A minute later, Kyla goes to open the front door, where she's surprised to find out that her mother's date is Chris, and likewise, Jess had no idea he was Kyla's teacher. The couple questions if she finds the situation odd. However, Kyla assures them she will try to adapt to their relationship. While the couple chats, Kyla goes to the kitchen to get a vase for the flowers Chris brought, feeling jealous. Later, she rejoins them only to pretend to stumble and spill water on Chris's suit. As a result, the couple decides to have their date at home with Kyla among them. Chris tries to ease the awkwardness by involving Kyla in their conversation. However, the longer she stays, the more her jealousy grows, prompting her to retreat to her room and contemplate ways to disrupt their date. When the couple starts to become intimate, Kyla screams and rushes downstairs, lying to them that someone was peeping through her window. Chris suggests they call the police, but Kyla forbids it, stating she didn't really see anyone. Chris eventually decides to stay to ensure their safety. He tells Kyla he doesn't mind because Riley isn't at home. She's hanging out with Trisha. In the morning, Kyla accidentally caught sight of Chris in the bathroom and praised the food her mother had prepared on the dining table. Jess asked if she liked Chris's presence. Before she could respond, Chris came for breakfast with them. At school, Riley approached Kyla to deny her accusations about Trisha. Based on her confession, it was actually Kyla who had been flirting with the history teacher since, in fact, Trisha was not in his history class and stated that Kyla had lied. Upon learning this, she immediately approached Trisha, threatened her, and asked her to stay away from Riley. However, she asserted that she should be the one angry because Kyla had spread rumors about her regarding the history teacher. At home, Kyla took a selfie in distress just to pretend at school that someone had secretly printed a stack of those photos. She then reported this issue to Chris, who promised to find the culprit. Back at home, Jess told Kyla that she would ask her school to conduct an investigation to ensure that no one was trying to take advantage of her. Despite the problem, Kyla informed her that she had been accepted into the university she desired, making Jess happy for her. She asked her mother to promise not to ignore if anything vague happened between her and Chris. The next day, she confessed to Riley that the girl involved with the history teacher was indeed her. The teacher made her feel special, so she made those photos for him, but she didn't know how they ended up being leaked. Upon learning this, Riley believed her, and they became friends again. That night, Jess and Chris planned to go on another date as Kyla noticed his cell phone on the vanity table. She saw an inappropriate text message from Trisha, and when Jess read it, she got mad. As a result, Jess ended her relationship with Chris, while Kyla, feeling happy, eavesdropped on their argument from her room. When Chris intended to leave, Kyla approached him in the car to confirm the truth about the text message. Chris admitted that Trisha sometimes sent him text messages, but he never replied to them. Suddenly, Kyla acted as if she understood the issues Chris was facing and then gave him a kiss before heading back home. She then took her phone from under the table and destroyed it. She felt happy after her plan succeeded because it wasn't Trisha who sent the text messages, but her. The next day, Trisha tried to flirt with Chris again, but Kyla intervened, returning his clothes, while Riley looked confused watching their behavior. Moments later, the school authorities called Trisha for reasons unknown. After class, Riley looked at Chris with many questions, but he confessed he didn't know what was going on. Then Kyla approached him and told him that perhaps he was meant to find a woman better than her mother. She kissed him again, and Chris looked very disgusted with her actions. Back at home, Jess told Kyla that the school staff found a damaged phone in Trisha's locker with her photos in it. The principal asked her to make a decision about what to do concerning Trisha. After this, Kyla arrived at Riley's birthday party bringing alcohol to celebrate her coming of age. While Riley was busy welcoming her friends, Kyla sneaked into Chris's room to seduce him into intimacy. Chris tried to stop her several times, but in the end, he couldn't resist any longer. As their intimacy escalated, Riley caught them in the act and left in anger. Her father managed to chase after her and found out that she was holding alcoholic drinks. However, she asserted that what she did couldn't be compared to what he did, and then she left again. After dispersing the party, Chris returned to the room to get his car keys and went to look for Riley. The next day, Jess received a message from Riley asking her to discuss something important. After this, she went to school to ask Kyla to pack her things and then slapped Chris repeatedly. Then Jess scolds Kyla for what she did with Chris and informs her that she will be having a meeting with the principal soon. However, Kyla defiantly stated that she was already 18, so she was free to do as she pleased. Upon hearing this, Jess became suspicious that everything she knew about Trisha was a lie that she created. Meanwhile, Riley approached Chris, who was desperate, and admitted that it was all his fault. He feels lost after being betrayed by his wife, and he apologizes, which Riley forgives. Turning back to Kyla, she met with Trisha just to argue about the broken phone and the photos. Even though there was no evidence, Trisha believed that she had been framed by Kyla all this time. Suddenly, Kyla began hitting herself and insisting that Chris belonged to her. When Chris and Riley arrived, she broke one of her fingers as Chris approached them. He asked what was happening, but Trisha also didn't understand what was wrong with Kyla. Chris then called the police, and once again, Trisha fell victim to Kyla's trap. Kyla was taken to the hospital, and her mother came to visit her. She apologized for coming late and admitted that she believed what Kyla had said about Trisha. Riley sarcastically thanked her for making Chris realize that he needed professional help. She decided to help cover the volleyball team, but warned that she was doing it for the team. Meanwhile, Chris declared that she was a crazy woman and decided to quit his job and stay away from her for good. After he leaves, Kyla notices there is a scalpel on the table, and when her mother arrives, she is gone. At school, Riley received a voice message from Chris asking her to meet him in his classroom, and he was there ready to pack up all his things. However, the lights in the hallway suddenly went out and Kyla appeared, telling her there would only be one woman in Chris's life before stabbing her. She fell, while Kyla managed to find Chris. She threatened Chris with the scalpel to continue their intimacy. While Riley was desperate for help, Kyla confessed that Chris met all the criteria of the man she desired. Chris, on the other hand, insisted that he had no feelings for her and that the previous intimacy was a mistake. He tried to stop her, but she kept pointing the scalpel at him. She wanted them to have a relationship, promising to give him the new Riley. Enraged, he pushed her, causing her to fall, with the janitor overhearing their commotion while Riley struggled with her wound. Chris asked where Riley was, but Kyla kicked him, causing him to stumble and hit his head on a table, rendering him unconscious. Curious, the janitor investigates the source of the noise, and when he hears a scream, he finds Kyla pretending to be scared in the classroom. Then the man went out to look for help, but Riley suddenly appeared asking him to run, but he was too late. Kyla killed him. The two girls then engaged in a fight until Riley managed to escape downstairs. Unfortunately, she got trapped in the dark room, and Kyla caught up with her. As Kyla strangled her with a neck strap, Riley fought back, causing her to fall and then hitting her with a camera until she was unconscious. Soon after, the police arrived to secure the crime scene, and both girls were taken to the ambulance. Sometime later, Chris and Riley had moved to another town where they were ready to resume their activities. Riley provided support for his first day at the new school, and her father did the same for her first day at college. He escorted her to the car, and at that moment, a mysterious person suddenly appeared, spying on them.